Thank you very much, dear Chairman. Thank you for the opportunity to present my work. And my work is called High-Tech Offers on Ecommerce Platform During War in Ukraine. And it consists, however, it is especially connected to the disruptions in e-commerce. E-commerce is perceived as a key player in growth of the global market. However, e-commerce does not develop independently of market disruptions, so it needs to be researched. Disruptions are often related to the problem of transfer, production, sale of goods and supplies. And in the final stage, of course, of the sales, it affects the retail customers and especially on the trading e-commerce platforms. The basic division for the disruptions in the market is of the type of the event. So we have two basics: global and regional. Global, we know already, and it is something like pandemic of COVID-19. However, there are also different kind of disruptions, and one of them is regional. In our case, an example of that type of event is a recent invasion of Russia in Ukraine, launched on February 24th. So from this kind of perspective, is e-commerce immune or no to the changes made by the local military conflict? There are different reasons for researching military conflicts and in the scope of e-commerce platform. First is the scale of migration. Poland was the most affected country by migration from Ukraine. For example, in first months of war, Polish border guard reported that more than 3 million people crossed the border from Ukraine to Poland. The next are communication channels. People arriving from invaded country could feel lost and abandoned. So mobile devices and electronic services provided by the governments could be very helpful for those people. Another reason is the disruption of goods exchange. So embargoes are issued and the transfer of goods from neighboring countries is disrupted. And of course, the last one is the point from which the market is observed. From the auction platform or electronic trading platform, one of them, the largest one in Poland is Allegro. This is very important because the speed at which offers are issued on the platform makes them very good point for observation. Makes it very good point for observation changes in the number of offers. So that's why that was the basics for the work. Okay. Smartphones are the most well-known high-tech devices available on the retail market. In this perspective, focusing on the market smartphone is one of the key assumptions of the presented article. So, this should fill a gap, research gap, if the market will decay or market will go up, like in the pandemic. Caused by those events and the high-profile events. Therefore, the aim of the study was to assess how military regional conflict affected the e-commerce auction platform in the field of high-tech. Hypothesis H1 was formulated, and it stated that regional military conflict influenced the volume of offers through H11, offers changed before and during war periods, and H12, existing correlation between volume of offers and number of people crossing the border from the country is affected by military conflict. So two approaches. One is that something's changed before and during the war, and the second is, the changes are in some point related to the number of people crossing the border. The methods for determining if the changes were found was divided into 3 steps. First was to provide the proper smartphone segmentation. The second was to provide proper time frame, and the third was to choose the basic statistical procedure, as this type of analysis is considered as just a pilot or fast track analysis for finding high frequency data changes. The time frame. The time frame for the study was chosen as the 4 weeks before the war, and the second period as the 4 weeks during the war. So the standpoint for the before the war period, also known as called here BWP, was the 27th of January, and the ending point was the 23rd of February, so the day before the start of the war. And the second period was also the 4-week period, and it started on February 24th and ending at March 23rd. Resolution for the observations points were 1 day. So at each date, the data was recorded from the auction platform, and then also concatenated and related to the number of people crossing the border reported by the Polish border guard. However, the second problem which has to be resolved is smartphone segmentation and choosing which smartphone are to be thoroughly examined. For this type of research, and it is the pilot study, one of the brand was chosen. And here was chosen Xiaomi brand of the smartphones because, well, wide variety of smartphones was available from this brand, and this brand included all of the smartphones in all of the segments of the smartphones. So it is not only the entry-level devices, but also the high-end smartphones was presented by the Xiaomi. So the second was, of course, availability of all models through all of the days in the survey timeframe. And if we have one brand, then we have also to distinguish what the smartphones are presented. Unfortunately, not all of the smartphones should be examined because they were not available, for example. So we have to do, or in the article, device positioning was also applied. And device positioning was directed to the brand, generation, and tier of the devices. The brand, Xiaomi and Redmi, because Redmi is also the sub-brand of Xiaomi. Generation, 3 generations, most known or better or most known generations, 11, 10, and 9 for Xiaomi, and 10, 9, and 8 for Redmi. And also it was divided into 2 tier of devices. So tier height, higher priced devices, better devices, and the tier base. It was also presented in this way. Procedure accounted for getting data from Polish Border Guard and from Allegro and comparing the time series. Yes, I see the time, so I will move to the results section. Maybe we can see the results from the point of figures. And at the first figure, we can see that most of the offers were accounted for the Mi 11 Lite in the before the war period, and it was almost 20% of offers. And the least offers were directed for the Redmi 8. 2.28%, but it changed during the war period. During the war period, the lead has been taken by the Redmi Note, so different kind of sub-brand, the lower priced devices, but of the higher tier. And it was Redmi Note 10 with almost 17% of offers, but the least offered smartphone was left by the Redmi 8. Well, volume of offers changed, but not every smartphone was changed in the same way. So as we can see here, the total volume of offers changed during the war period, and it was almost 3% more. But Mi Group unfortunately declined. So the better devices was offered least. And basic tier or least considered as the lower priced devices was offered more by almost 5%. Well, of course, trying to determine is there any relationship to number of people crossing and the total of offers. As you can see there, in the orange we have the number of people crossing the border, and total number of offers is drawn by the blue line. So maybe there is some relations, but not for the whole of the week, for whole of the period during the war. So the further investigation was.
There is 1 minute left.
Oh, I'm sorry. So maybe I go to those findings, yeah, section. So what we can say, number of smartphones doesn't go too high, only 3%. So military conflict appear to not change the electronic platform market. But what has happened, change in observed among smartphone generations. So we can see, for the example, that previous generations, like the one from the 2019, had a different kind of sign. So it wasn't related in the same way for the people crossing the border. For example, where we can assume that cheaper products like previous generation will sell out at much higher rate than a higher priced device. So that's interesting, and I think it deserves to be further research. Another example is social media crises. We can of course find it, and there is one example like Redmi Note 10, which plays a strong negative correlation between number of people crossing the border and from the Ukraine. So we can assume that maybe higher tier devices, but from the lower segment, will sell out much quicker. And of course, another findings is that sometimes appearance of new sellers could add some changes to the market. Further research, of course, we can not. This was only limited to the one brand. In further research, it should be, of course, enhanced. And the second is the segmentation process. Segmentation process is the one, just the entry level. For the entry level devices in higher priced, but in the future research, of course, it should be enhanced. I'm sorry for the delay, and thank you for the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was really interesting and related to real life issues. So thank you very much. If we have any questions. There is Professor Ziemba, so we are listening.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you for very interesting presentation. And I have a question about your surprising. Is there anything in your research findings that surprise you? Were some issues on which you expected different findings?
Yes, if I say so, maybe I think that the problem is with this research and is related to how people react. Unfortunately, newcomers have already appeared on the market, and unfortunately, it wasn't the Ukrainian people. It was much more sellers from the Poland. They were trying to sell the phones, but it was not Ukrainian people. So that was well a different kind of what I expected.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? If no, I would like to thank you all presenters. There was really interesting session. Also, all researchers and attendees who asked questions. So I think it's good time to thank you very much for other members of panelists, and I think we can close this session.